Welcome back to Inside City Hall. House Republicans have unveiled a budget proposal which President Trump has called a, quote, big, beautiful bill. But not all Republicans are in favor of it. Members of some high income taxpayer districts here in New York and in California have long called for an increase on the cap on state and local tax deductions, otherwise known as SALT. It has been an issue they've been trying to address ever since Trump first capped that deduction back in 2017. The proposal currently on the table would bring the cap from $10,000 up to $30,000. That has caused a split in the New York delegation of House Republicans, some saying that that number is not high enough. They've called the number insulting, in fact, but my next guest supports the $30,000 limit. Joining me now to talk about that and much more is Congresswoman Nicole Malliotakis, whose district includes all of Staten Island and part of southern Brooklyn. She's also a member of the House Ways and Means Committee and the Subcommittee on Tax. Welcome back to the program. Great to see you.
Good to be with you, Errol. Thank you.
So let's talk about that deduction. At least one of your colleagues, I think it was Nick LaLota out on Long Island, has said that if they don't lift that tax cap really, really high, he's simply not going to vote for the bill. Where do you fall in all of that?
Look, I understand that every member needs to fight for what's best for their particular district. Now, in my particular district, a $30,000 deduction for state and local taxes would cover 98% of my district and roughly the middle class, right? We're talking about families of 400,000 or less. That's basically what we have on Staten Island. We have civil service workers, middle income families, and this would go a long way, saving them roughly $6,000 to $7,000 annually. It is huge. And we have to remember also, Errol, why we need state and local tax relief. We need it because our mayor, our governor, the folks at City Hall, and the state legislature keep taxing New Yorkers to death. So we're doing what we can on the federal level to provide relief. And I think that particular provision, coupled with a few others, including the increase in the standard deduction, which was my legislation, and also a bonus deduction for senior citizens that will reduce their tax burden, which is also my piece of legislation, will really provide significant relief for the people I represent in Staten Island and Brooklyn and for Americans all across the country.
Well, talk a little bit. I mean, look, your own Ways and Means, so you know this stuff. Talk a little bit about what it's like to try and explain in your district that you've got to cut back on the size of government because, number one, that's what the voters voted for when they put Republicans in charge of both houses of Congress and the White House. But secondly, people tend to like the idea of trimming government until it's something that they really want, at which point they start saying, well, wait a minute, not so fast. How do you manage that conversation?
But I think it's about striking the proper balance, right? Like with anything else, here's an opportunity for Republicans to root out waste, fraud, and abuse, unnecessary overhead, bloated bureaucracy, and then put that savings and give it back to the taxpayer. That's always been a Republican principle, to allow hardworking people to keep more money in their own pockets. And so when you go back to this $30,000 deduction, the governor today was saying she wanted an unlimited state and local tax deduction. Well, I mean, since when are the Democrats now fighting for the billionaires, right? I guess they were always accusing us of doing that. And here we're pushing for this relief for the middle class, and they want relief for the billionaires. And let's remind people again, we need this relief because they are taxing us to death here in New York State. So I think there's a balance to be had here. We can provide relief for working Americans, for senior citizens, and for middle class families. And then we can find significant savings by rooting out the waste, fraud, and abuse, which we all know is prevalent, we all know exists, not only in the federal level, but the state and local level as well. And I should also point out that I was one of the leaders that had pushed back significantly on Medicaid cuts, traditional Medicaid that serves our seniors, our disabled, our developmentally disabled. I said we were not going to lower the 50% match that New York State receives. We were successful in making sure that 50% did not get lower. We were successful in ensuring there were not per capita caps placed. Will there be some reforms? Yes, we're going to push for people to work if they are of working age, they don't have dependents, they are able-bodied. We're going to root out illegal immigrants who are taking advantage and receiving benefits from Medicaid. And we're going to place that funding and ensure that the people who are the ones that rely on Medicaid are the ones that and are eligible, legally eligible, are the ones who receive those benefits.
Okay, well let's talk about this in the broadest sense, meaning the big national numbers. The multi-trillion-dollar cut in spending that is being pursued by your Republican colleagues. Can you really get there without going into some of the big entitlement programs like Medicaid or Social Security?
Well, Social Security and Medicare are not touched at all in this. In fact, what we're doing is reducing the tax burden that our seniors who receive Social Security income pay in taxes so they can keep more of their hard-earned money. That's number one. Number two, as it relates to Medicaid, we were successful in pushing back, as I said, a reduction in the matching funds that the state receives from the federal government for traditional Medicaid. That's currently 50%, and that will stay the same. What we're doing is putting in some reforms that go after the fraudsters, the people who abuse the system, the people who are not legally eligible, to require more eligibility checks to get individuals who are not entitled off. The work requirements, which we think is very fair. If you are young, able-bodied, you don't have children, you should be working or at least volunteering in exchange for those benefits. So there's something that's there, I think, that is reasonable. Again, we pushed back on any significant cuts that would have affected our traditional beneficiaries. And I'm very proud, by the way, to be one of the 12 Republicans who really took a stand there and said, we're not going to support something that would cut from our seniors and our disabled. And so, I think we struck a decent balance here. It's not perfect. This is governing, it's a give and take. It's a negotiation. We're not all going to be happy with everything that's in this bill. But at the end of the day, it is a good bill that protects taxpayers, it protects our seniors and our disabled, and it provides relief to the hardworking class and middle class and our seniors who have worked their whole lives and paid taxes and deserve to keep their Social Security income without significant high burden of taxes.
Okay, one more question on this topic. One of the things that's going to be coming down in the next few weeks, apparently before Memorial Day, if possible, is that the House and the Senate are both supposed to take a vote. The Senate, your Republican colleagues on the other side of the building there, seem to be looking toward a much smaller cut than what you've been talking about in the House. That creates a political problem, because if you and some of your House colleagues take a really tough vote that might be controversial, only to see the Senate refuse to go along with it, you've taken a political hit without even getting the policy benefit. How's that conversation looking to you?
Look, I'm gonna vote for a bill because I think it's a good bill, and the good policies far outweigh any negative ones. And I think we're moving in that right direction. I think at the end of the day, this will be a big, beautiful bill, as the president says. Now, yes, there could be some changes made by the Senate. We're hoping that leadership can hash out those differences before we take a vote, a final vote. Why take two votes when you could take one vote? And why waste everyone's time? Let's actually hash out those differences beforehand, get an agreement, and pass the bill that we think can get final package and be signed in by the president. So we'll have to see what the Senate does here. Obviously, the House, this is where this process really begins. We are the ones with the power of the purse, and we are the ones who are drafting the legislation. Certainly, we've been working with the senators and taking their input, at least in the Ways and Means Committee. We've, I think, developed something in Ways and Means that the Senate will support as is. But we'll have to see how this process, the idea is to just move this ball forward and see how we can move toward getting this bill passed and into law so it benefits the American people, our economy, which, look, millions of jobs were created in 2017. There were millions of people lifted out of poverty, lowest unemployment rate for African Americans and Hispanics as a result of that initial bill. I think we could do so much better right now, and the middle class and the seniors are really going to benefit from what we were able to get in here.
Okay, in our last minute, let's bring it back local. As far as I can tell, there is only one Republican candidate for mayor, and that's Curtis Sliwa. Are there any other races where you are either making an endorsement or maybe we can expect to see you get involved?
Well, as you know, Frank Morano won this special election, and he has that primary again in June. I hope people will continue to rally behind Frank Morano. He'll be a great council member for the South Shore of Staten Island. Look, if people want to shake things up in New York, they're tired of the same old in New York, and they're tired of the one-party rule, then they should vote for Curtis Sliwa, because no one is going to shake up City Hall, Errol, as you know, than Curtis Sliwa. And the guy, look, knows about public safety, knows about transit, knows about the homeless crisis. He'll bring an interesting, fresh perspective. And the Democrats, they've given us the problems that we're facing in this city. You know, I mean, people are talking about the governor being the front runner, but he gave us congestion pricing. He gave us sanctuary state. He gave free college tuition to illegal immigrants when New Yorkers are suffering and saddled with debt. And he gave us the bail law, by the way. So all these things I don't think New Yorkers like very much.
Okay, we shall see. And of course, a lot of our viewers remember you were a candidate 8 years ago, and perhaps we'll see some of your experience there play out with Mr. Sliwa. Thanks so much for joining me. Great talking with you.
Great to be with you. Thank you.
Okay, let's take a break now. When we come